This is the Buffett Mindset channel where we practice patience and calm wealth building daily. If you enjoy these types of videos, consider liking and subscribing. This will mean a lot to the channel. There are moments in a man's life when the air itself seems to hold its breath, when the world goes quiet enough for truth to speak without interruption. This, right now, is one of those moments. You didn't stumble into this by accident. You were guided indeed by the small, persistent pull of something greater, something ancient inside you that'd been waiting for you to stop drifting and start deciding. The world may call it coincidence, but destiny doesn't deal in chance. It weaves, it whispers. It places the right fire in your path when you're finally ready to feel the heat. And make no mistake, this message isn't entertainment, it's invitation, the kind that demands something of you. You've listened to 1,000 voices in your life, teachers, friends, fears, doubts. But tonight, in this silence, only one voice matters, the one that's been whispering beneath all the noise, the one that says you were built for more. That voice doesn't beg, it doesn't shout. It just waits for the day you're tired of pretending that average feels like peace. It's been watching you compromise, watching you settle, watching you bargain with your potential. It's seen you wake up with the ache of knowing you're meant for something more, only to roll over and smother that spark beneath the blanket of comfort. And yet, it never leaves. That, the mercy and the torment of purpose, it did not let you rest while you're smaller than you were designed to be. It keep haunting your quiet moments, showing up in your thoughts when you least expect it, whispering truths you try to ignore. You were not meant to drift. You were meant to drive. You were not meant to wonder. You were meant to witness. Every man who has risen above mediocrity has heard this same whisper. Henry Ford heard it on his father's farm. Andrew Carnegie heard it in the clatter of factory steel. Warren Buffett heard it in the quiet hum of his Nebraska office while the rest of the world chased noise. They reached the same conclusion, that destiny doesn't come with a guarantee, only an opportunity. That greatness doesn't announce itself with a trumpet. It waits for you to answer the call. You've been waiting for the world to give you permission to start, but the truth is the world has been waiting on you. The permission was never theirs to grant. It was yours to claim. There's a law woven through the universe. Belief precedes becoming. What you believe about yourself writes the blueprint of your future. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you think you deserve. That's why most men stay small, because the world demands it, but because their own minds agree to it. Buffett didn't wake up one day a billionaire. He became wealthy long before the first dollar arrived, when he decided to think differently, when he trained his mind to see value where others saw noise. And he understood that the most powerful compound interest in the world isn't financial, it's mental. Every thought repeated becomes a belief, every belief acted upon becomes a pattern, and every pattern becomes your destiny. You can't build a fortune until you first build a foundation of thought that supports it. You see, your mind is the soil and your words are the seeds. You've been planting weeds by accident, fear, doubt, hesitation, and then cursing the garden for not blooming. But tonight, that ends. From now on, you choose what grows. You speak differently, think differently, act differently. You become the architect of your mind, not its tenant. That's how men like Buffett, Ford, and Edison rewrote their lives. They refused to live in the echo of their environment. They built new echoes, new realities, new results, one thought at a time. That the power you've forgotten you hold. You don't need permission to change your life. You only need persistence to repeat the new truth until the old one starves. There will be days when the old self fights back. Days when the voice of fear gets louder, when the world mocks your progress, when your results lag behind your effort. But remember this, progress is never visible in its early stages. No seed looks like a tree, no beginning feels like destiny, and no man knows he's transforming until he already crossed the threshold. That's why Buffett says, you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. Some things take time, and your time has already begun. Right now you listen, your mind is deciding whether to retreat or to rise, whether to go back to comfort or forward into conviction. But tear the thing about destiny. It never goes away, but it does grow impatient. The opportunities standing before you do not wait forever. Life rewards those who move while others hesitate. You've waited long enough. The world doesn't need another cautious dreamer. It needs a decisive builder, a man who trusts the whisper enough to act when logic says, wait. That's the dividing line between the forgotten and the remembered. Those who wait become excuses. Those who move become examples. So who would you do next? Stop negotiating with your potential. Stop asking for signs. This is the sign. This is the confirmation you've been waiting for. The intersection of divine timing and human will. The same invisible current that brought you here will carry you forward if you dare to act. Begin small, but begin completely. Take the first disciplined step toward the life you've been postponing. Write the tale. Make the call. Learn the skill. Wake up earlier. Read longer. Believe louder. Repeat until belief becomes identity, until identity becomes inevitability. Because the truth is, you are never waiting on motivation. You are waiting on meaning. And meaning only arrives once you start moving. Look around you. The world is built by men who stopped asking what they were capable of and started proving it. The same soil they walked on is beneath your feet. The same air they breathed fills your lungs. The same fire that built empires is sleeping in your chest. All that separates you from them is a single decision: to believe the whisper more than the world. The man you were meant to be is waiting on the other side of that decision. When you decide, truly decide, something ancient moves with you. The universe does not honor hesitation. It honors conviction. You have to understand this. Every powerful man you've admired once stood where you are now, uncertain, untested, unseen. But the moment they chose to act with final awe, the path rearranged itself around them. That not mysticism, that momentum. The world bends for men who walk without looking back. Buffett didn't start with certainty. He started with faith in his process. He read, he thought, he waited. He didn't trade frenzy for wisdom. He traded time for mastery. Every day was a small investment in becoming who he was meant to be. He understood that faith without repetition fades, but faith with discipline compounds. That the same law that governs every seed, every sunrise, every story of transformation. The results you seek won't come, but you demand them. They'll come, but you deserve them. They're daily reinforcement. You build belief like muscle. You repeat the new language until the old one breaks. You train your mind to expect victory long before the scoreboard agrees. That how every real transformation begins in the unseen hours, in the quiet repetition of a new standard, in the refusal to let your mind drift back into weakness. Most men sabotage themselves not because they lack talent, but because they allow comfort to erase conviction. They start, stop, start a dead, forever living in the waiting room of their own potential. But destiny does not tolerate dabblers. It waits for the man who decides once and never undecides. Ford didn't return to the farm after his first failed engine. Edison didn't quit after 1,000 broken bulbs. Buffett didn't sell his philosophy when the market mocked his patience. They had lived by the same creed. Stay steady, time is your ally if your faith is fixed, and that your call now to stay steady, to treat every hour a proof of commitment, to speak your dream until it feels less like hope and more like heritage. You have to understand, the world will never announce that you're ready. It will never send you perfect timing, perfect people, or perfect peace. It will send resistance, silence, and doubt. Those are your invitations to grow. Buffett once said, you don't find out who's swimming naked until the tide goes out. What he meant was not just about business. It was about character. When comfort recedes, truth is revealed. When the applause stops, discipline begins. That, when you find out if your foundation is real, most men crumble there. But you've been fed to stand. The whisper inside you didn't bring you heed to quit. It brought you heed to remember what you are. You are not ordinary clay molded by the world. You are fire meant to mold the world. Every challenge you face is an invitation to build the muscle of faith. Every delay is a test of your capacity to hold vision without evidence. And those who master that patience become unstoppable. Buffett learned to love boredom because boredom weeds out the impulsive. He hold it waiting for the fat pitch, that the difference between the desperate and the destined. The desperate chase, the destined choose. You must choose your pitch in life, your mission, your standard, your circle, and then swing with everything you have when it lands. The world will call you stubborn, but history will call you steadfast. If you can learn to endure the season of invisibility, the world will not be able to ignore you in the season of harvest. That the rhythm of greatness, long periods of quiet growth followed by sudden bloom, a man who plants without expectation eventually reaps without limit. But you can't rush the soil. You can't demand fruit before the root. Buffett spent years compound in obscurity, while others chased quick gains, and when his moment came, it was too late for the world to catch up. That how destiny rewards patience with permanence. You may not be celebrated now, but that's not your concern. Your concern is the process. To show up every day, refine your craft, strengthen your mind, and walk like the outcome is already written. Let me tell you something about transformation. It's quiet until it's undeniable. You won't feel different at first. The voice of doubt will still whisper. The habits of the past will still tug at your sleeve, but something deeper will have shifted. Your mind will start negotiating differently. Your thoughts will sound stronger. The world will test you, but your response will feel new. That's how you'll know it working. You won't need to announce it. Change doesn't need validation, it needs continuation. Keep compound the man you're becoming. Every act of discipline is a deposit into your destiny. Every sacrifice you wait now is interest that your future self will collect with gratitude. And when the storm comes, and it dipped, you won't crumble, because you've been training for it. Buffett doesn't panic when markets fall, because he built his wealth on principles, not predictions. You must do the same with your life. Build on principles so strong that no failure can shake you. Live with values so clear that no temptation can confuse you. Think long enough to outlast the chaos. Act slow enough to avoid regret. Move steady enough to let compound do its work. That's how destiny matures, through the man who refuses to stop show up. The man who learns that consistency is not glamorous, but it is divine. Every sunrise you face with intention adds another layer of strength. Every night you end with gratitude adds another measure of peace. So hear the truth. You didn't find this message, Vit found you, because it's time. Time to stop treating your life like a rehearsal and start living like it's the premiere. You've fed the lessons, carried the doubts, waited for clarity. Now act. The man who acts today will look back one day and realize that this was the night he changed his orbit forever. The whisper wrote you the decision will take you there. Move now. When a man finally moves, truly moves, something in the universe rearranges itself around his motion. The world respects momentum more than intention. You can think for years, led for decades, but until you take that first step, destiny remains theory. Buffett understood that action clarifies what thought alone can't. He didn't spend his life waiting for perfect information or perfect timing. He acted on what he knew, trusted his preparation, and let time refine the rest. That the lesson to me overlooked, you don't get to see the whole staircase before you climb. You don't get to see the first few steps, and faith demands that you take them anyway. Every empire begins with one move in the dark. The great mistake is believing you need certainty before you begin. Certainty doesn't come first. It earned through consistency. The world rewards those who move despite the fog, those who trust their compass when others wait for the clouds to clear. But action alone isn't enough. The world is full of motion without meaning. The difference between the average and the exceptional is precision. Buffett doesn't move often, but when he does, it's deliberate. That the mark of wisdom, to be fast when it matters, slow when it doesn't, and silent when there's nothing worth saying. You must learn that rhythm. Action is your servant, not your master. Don't move to look busy, move to make impact. Every decision should come from depth, not desperation. There's a reason Buffett says, the difference between successful people and real successful people is that real successful people say no to almost everything. That the terrible yes costs energy, focus, and time. The real currency of greatness, guard them like gold. The man who spends them carelessly ends poor in both wealth and peace. You must become the kind of man whose actions echo clarity. No more scattered effort, no more chasing 100 directions. Pick your aim and move toward it with the quiet confidence of inevitability. The noise of the world will tempt you to rush, to compare, to prove. But comparison is the enemy of compound. Buffett didn't compare his timeline to others, he mastered his own. He watched others chase trends while he waited for principles to pay off. That's how he became unshakable. You don't need speed, you need trend. You don't need applause, you need alignment. You don't need luck, you need longevity. Every man chasing shortcuts will eventually tire. Every man walking steadily will eventually arrive. And when you act with purpose, something remarkable happens. The fear that once paralyzed you begins to serve you. Fear isn't your enemy, it's your signal. It tells you that what you're about to do matters. Buffett once said, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. But that lesson isn't just about markets, it's about mindset. When everyone retreats into comfort, you advance with conviction. When the world hesitates, you build. When they panic, you prepare. That's how fortunes of both money and meaning are made. You learn to read fear fuel, to walk into uncertainty with discipline instead of emotion. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision that something else matters more. And what matters most? Purpose. Without purpose, all motion becomes noise. Purpose makes even pain productive. Buffett never chased money for its own sake. He chased mastery. Wealth was a byproduct of obsession with excellence. That's why he never lost dent. Even when temptation came disguised as opportunity, you must find your equivalent of that obsession, the thing with building, refining, protecting. Because without a why, every obstacle feels like punishment. With one, every obstacle feels like training, and destiny doesn't hand itself to the most talented, it hands itself to the most trained. Purpose is your internal compass when everything external falls apart, right? We are doing my and the environment just look, you catch them, but the man who knows his purpose cannot be moved by opinion, cannot be shaken by failure, cannot be stopped by time. But you must remember, once you start, the world will test your sincerity. The storms will come not to destroy you, but to verify you. You'll lose things, people, maybe even comfort. But what remains will be real. Buffett's fortune didn't grow in fair weather. It grew through recessions, through ridicule, through resistance. He didn't pray for easier seasons. He prepared for stronger storms. That destiny works. It doesn't ask, are you talented enough? It asks, can you keep walking when the ground shifts beneath you? That's the measure of every man who made history. Not much he gained, but how much he endured without losing faith. When fatigue comes and it hits, you must learn to rest without retreating. Buffett's patience wasn't passive. It was powered stillness. He knew that withdrawal doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. There will be times you'll need to pull back, not to quit, but to recalibrate. Use those moments to rebuild your strength, sharpen your focus, and remind yourself why you started. Growth is a cycle. Pressure, pause, progress. The man who respects that rhythm never burns out. He compounds. Because even in rest, he reinforcing his foundation. Even in silence, he preparing his next statement. Even in solitude, he multiplying his future strength. So keep moving, but move meaningfully. Speak less, but say more. Work hard, but think harder. Let every action serve your higher aim. Every decision add weight to your legacy. Don't chase what shines, build what lasts. Remember, you weren't sent to live conveniently. You were sent to live significantly. Every minute you waste doubted that truth is a minute stolen from the man you could be. So act though you've already become him. Speak, he would speak. Work, he would work. Stand, he would stand. Because the only way to meet your future self is to start acting like him now. The time for hesitation is ended. The whisper that brought you here is now roaring in your chest. It calling you to rise, to take full ownership of your story, to stop narrating your life like a spectator and start directing it like a creator. The world may not be ready for who you're becoming, but that's irrelevant. You're not building for applause, you're building for eternity. Every step you take with intention sends a vetch into the universe. I am no longer waiting for my destiny. I am walking in. When a man crosses that invisible line between wishing and walking, something within him changes forever. His thoughts no longer orbit around what could be, they begin to anchor in what must be. That is the moment rebirth bends, not in the body, not in the world around him, but in the chamber of the mind where he finally stops running from himself. Every man has two lives, and the second begins the moment he realizes he only has one. Buffett lives every day as if that truth were written into his DNA. He doesn't waste hours chasing applause or proving himself to strangers. He moves through life like a man who knows time is a currency that cannot be refunded. That's what you must become, a man obsessed with meaning, allergic to mediocrity and anchored in purpose. You must learn to think your future self. Imagine him calm, precise, confident, and then act as though you've already become him. Every decision you make from that mindset brings that version of you closer to reality. This is all identity compounds. You think you act and then you reinforce. Every choice either strengthens or weakens the new man you're becoming. Buffett didn't become who he is through one grand transformation. He became through 1,000 small reinforcements. Reading daily, thinking deliberately, staying disciplined when others panicked. Each repetition carved the man he became. The world will tell you that success is about chance, but Buffett's entire life disproves that. Success is about rhythm. It's about waking up and moving in harmony with the laws that govern greatness. It's about compound your character until the world can't tell the difference between what you believe and what you are. You must do the same. You don't need lightning to strike. You need to strike the flint every day until the spark catches. But what separates the enduring from the ordinary, the willingness to live unseen. Every seed spends its first season underground, growing roots before branches. The same is true for a man becoming his higher self. You will feel buried before you bloom. The world will not applaud your discipline. The people around you may mock your stillness, your patience, your focus. Let them, they are addicted to noise. You are addicted to compounding. Buffett has said that wealth transfers from the active to the patient, and that law applies beyond money. It applies to mastery, to peace, to purpose. Those who chase lose. Those who cultivate inherit. The man who has sit still long enough to hear himself think becomes unstoppable, whilst his decisions no longer depend on the approval of the world. Patience is not passive, but a declaration of control. Every time you wait when others rush, you're proving that you serve purpose, not panic. Buffett once said, "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Life itself works the same way. It transfers power from the impulsive to the intentional. Every hour you spend thinking, refining, improving, instead of reacting, you're taking what others waste and turning it into strength." That's the difference between the man who lasts and the man who burns out. The former invests his energy, the latter spends it. One multiplies, the other depletes. You must learn to invest your energy the way Buffett invests capital, calmly, long-term, without emotion. The true rebirth begins when you stop chasing validation and start cultivating vision. Validation is addictive, plus it gives you small bursts of reward. But vision gives you something better. It gives you then. And Buffett doesn't care about what trending. He cares about what timeless. He plays long, gain in a short-sighted world. That's why his peace compounds fast as his wealth. You can do the same. Choose one mission and devote yourself to it long enough for the noise to quiet. You will find that once you no longer need to prove yourself, your power becomes undeniable. The world measures success by how loud you are. Greatness measures by how steady you remain. When the world tries to distract you, there will come a day when people wonder how you did it, how you stayed tied, how you didn't lose faith when the road was dark. And you'll smile, because you'll know that the secret was simple. You stopped negotiating with fear. You accepted that discomfort is the cost of destiny. You stopped waiting for motivation and started moving with discipline. You didn't need lightning to strike. You became the storm. Rebirth isn't a flash, it's a forge. You'll be refined by fire, but the fire doesn't come to destroy, it comes to shape. Buffett never avoided heat. He learned to harness every mistake, a loss, every correction became fuel for clarity. The same must happen in you. Don't hide from difficulty, welcome it. The man you were meant to be is built in resistance, not in rest. The greatest sculpted of life are not applause and ease, but pressure and repetition. When you stop suicide punishment and start seeing its preparation, you become untouchable. And then, one day, you'll wake up and realize you no longer have to convince yourself to keep going. The identity will have taken root. The new self will no longer need affirmation. So you will have become the affirmation. Every decision would feel aligned. Every step would feel like progress. That when destiny stops feeling like a dream and starts feeling like gravity, it pulls you upward naturally, without strain. That the reward for every quiet hour of faith. That the moment when you stop chasing purpose and start carrying it. And through it. Remember, this rebirth is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you always were before the world taught you to doubt. Buffett's wisdom is ancient in that sense. He simply remained who he was when everyone else forgot. You must do the same. Strip away the layers of fear, of conformity, of hesitation. Beneath them lies the man you were always meant to be. Calm, confident, capable, and clear. And when that man emerges, he will no longer ask, was I meant to find this message? He will know he was born to live it. When you finally walk as the man you were meant to be, the world feels different. The air seems heavier with purpose. The noise that used to rattle you becomes faint, background static, and every step you take carries quiet authority. This is the moment when vision becomes embodiment. You no longer repeat affirmation hoping they'll take root. Your life itself becomes the affirmation. People will sense something in you but won't have the words for it. They'll call it confidence, charisma, luck, favor. But you'll know it alignment. It's the byproduct of living congruent with truth. The man who knows who he is no longer needs to prove it. He moves like a river, calm, steady, and unstoppable. That's what Buffett means when he says, it's not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results. The extraordinary hides in the ordinary done faithfully. Repetition, patience, and principle. They may look dull from the outside, but inside them burns the quiet fire of inevitability. This stage of life, the embodiment, is not about effort, it's about order. Once a man's thoughts, habits, and actions fall into harmony, momentum takes over. You no longer fight yourself. You no longer wrestle with hesitation. You have internal leverage. Buffett built his empire on this kind of leverage. Not borrowed money, but borrowed time earned through discipline. Every hour invested years still pays him dividends today. That's what you must do. Build systems so honest, so efficient that they continue working when you rest. Discipline is freedom disguised as duty. The man who disciplines himself once earns peace 1,000 times over. Every decision made from alignment compounds. Every temptation resisted adds strength. Every promise kept adds weight to your word until it becomes unbreakable. There will come a peak when you no longer need external motivation, but conviction itself becomes fuel. That when you've crossed from imitation into initiation. Most men borrow fire from others. You've learned to strike your own flint. Buffett doesn't need the market praise to validate his patience. His principles are his proof. You must reach the same height. Don't depend on applause, don't depend on outcomes, depend on process. You've seen by now that destiny doesn't come in a rush, it grows quietly like compound interest. The same law that multiplies dollars multiplies discipline. Every day of focus adds to your storehouse of strength. The impatient quit right before the compound curve turns exponential. The wise wait long enough to witness the reward. And as you grow, you'll begin to notice something profound. The less you chase, the more you attract. It's not mysticism, it's magnetism. The world moves towards men who move with conviction. Buffett doesn't run after opportunity finds him. That the law of focus entry flows towards stability. When you stop flailing, when you stop forcing, you start drawing. That's the difference between effort and influence. The man of effort tries to grab. The man of influence simply holds his ground until what is meant for him arrives. You must learn to do the sea. Hold your tangent until it becomes gravity. Be so consistent that chaos learns to respect your presence. Embodiment all demands detachment. Once you know who you are, you stop clinging to what you're not. Buffett has watched fortunes rise and fall, companies succeed and vanish, trends come and go. Yet his code remains untouched. Why? Because he never confused movement with meaning. His peace doesn't depend on outcomes. He invests with logic, not emotion. He plays the game, but the game doesn't play him. That mastery to stay engaged without becoming enslaved. When losses come, learn from them. When wins come, release them. Your worth is not a fluctuating graph. It's a fixed value set by discipline and clarity. You will also learn the subtle art of silence. The higher you climb in consciousness, the less you need to explain. Buffett doesn't debate his philosophy with doubters. He lets his results speak. You must learn that too. Let your peace be your argument. Let your progress be your rebuttal. The loud seek approval. The calm already have it. That's why Buffett power endures. He doesn't chase attention, yet attention finds him. He doesn't preach, yet his life preaches louder than any sermon. You can live that way too. Be deliberate, not desperate. Be certain, not loud. Move in such a way that your presence becomes instruction. This is the secret most miss. Embodiment is not the end of growth, it's the beginning of legacy. Once you live in alignment, your very existence becomes a message to those around you. Every conversation, every decision, every reaction teaches silently. Buffett wisdom didn't spread, but he tried to convert people. It spread, but people saw peace and wanted to understand its source. You will become that kind of example, not through preaching, but through being. Your calm will teach more than your ambition it could. Your consistency will inspire more than your excitement did. Your integrity will ripple farther than any performance could reach. And somewhere along the road, you'll realize something even greater. The man you were chasing all along, the ideal version of yourself, was never ahead of you. He was waiting inside, behind layers of fear, hesitation, and doubt. You didn't have to become him. You had to uncover him. That's why Buffett wisdom feels ageless. It's not invention, it's remembrance. He remembered the laws of patience, discipline, and simplicity that the modern world forgot. You are doing the same now. You're not learning how to be extraordinary. You're remembering that you already are. So walk with that awareness. Speak less, move slower, think longer, build deeper. The old you to try to return, whispering that you've changed too much, that comfort would feel easier, but you've tasted conviction now, and once a man has tasted conviction, comfort feels like poison. You can't go back to what you were, because what you were no longer fits who you've become. And that's the sign you've crossed over, that embodiment, the fate where destiny and identity become the same. There comes a point when a man no longer wakes up chasing anything. He wakes up to maintain what he has built inside. That is the highest form of wealth, peace earned through persistence. It's not loud, it doesn't glitter, it doesn't need to be flaunted, but true success no longer seeks its audience. Warren Buffett lives in that silence. He's not running from the past or racing the future.
Because I thought that's moving, and then right one there only it matters. Mastery of self. Right. Well, I think this entire journey has been leading you toward all the struggle, all the repetition, all the resistance. They were not preparing you for applause. They were preparing you for alignment. To think like Buffett is not to memorize his quotes or mimic his habits. It's to understand what all of it was pointing to. The liberation that comes when you finally stop arguing with life. When you stop fighting for control and start operating for understanding. When your spirit no longer flinches at uncertainty because you've seen that everything you need has always been within reach, waiting for your patience to catch up. This is the quiet power of mastery. It isn't measured by how much a man owns, but by how little he needs to feel whole. That's why Buffett, a billionaire many times over, still finds joy in the same simple routines. He reads, he thinks, he reflects. He doesn't chase, he chooses. That the paradox of compound wisdom, the more you grow, the less you crave. The less you crave, the more clear you see. And the clearer you see, the richer life becomes. Simplicity reveals the divine order that complexity hides. You begin to see that every moment, even the difficult ones, has purpose. The rejections that once stung were redirections. The failures that once hurt were calibrate. The seasons of waiting weren't delays, they were deposits.
Buffett understood this rhythm long before the world caught on. He knew that patience wasn't about doing nothing, it was about trusting time. Every man must learn that truth if he hopes to find peace in the storm. When you live from this level of calm, fear loses its grip. Not because danger disappears, but as you finally recognize it for what it is. A teacher, Buffett calm in crisis, isn't a trick. This result of deep-rooted faith in process. He doesn't react to every fluctuation, but he understands that no storm lasts forever. Markets recover, life restores, character endures. That the philosophy of a man who has seen decades of chaos and realized that the only constant worth clinging to is imposure. That what you must learn to cultivate. The next time life tests you, don't panic, pause, don't rush, reflect. The same patience that makes wealth compound will make your soul unshakable. You'll realize that strength isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the stillness to wait when others run, to believe when others quit, to breathe when others rake. That's the strength Buffett carries, and it's available to anyone willing to master their reactions. Gratitude grows naturally once you reach this stage. When you've endured enough seasons to see that everything that happened was necessary, thankfulness becomes instinct. Buffett, gratitude isn't performative. It's woven into his choices. He gives freely, because he knows that what he has is borrowed from time. That's the final lesson. Ownership is an illusion. Stewardship is the truth. You don't really own any. Not your money, not your titles, not even your moments. You're entrusted with them. The goal is to manage them so well that when life asks for them back, you can let go without fear. That's why Buffett plans to give away most of his fortune. He understands that wealth unshared is wasted, that hoarding abundance shrinks the soul. When you live with that kind of detachment, peace becomes permanent. Nothing the world gives can inflate you, and nothing it takes can deflate you. You start to see that legacy isn't about what people remember, it's about what continues. Buffett's wealth will fade someday. His name may dim, but the mindset he lived by will keep compounding those who learn from it. That immortality, not that carved in stone, but the kind breathed into others. And now, that same mindset belongs to you. The moment you internalize these principles, discipline, patience, simplicity, gratitude, you joined a lineage of thinkers who build instead of boast. You became part of a quiet brotherhood of men who measure wealth not in numbers, but in nights of peaceful sleep and mornings of purpose. You may not then have billions, but you already have the blueprint that created them. You already possess the mental architecture that sustains them. In time, people will come to you for advice. Buffett wealth will fade someday. His name may dim, but the mindset he lived by will keep compounding those who learn from it underneath him. You're entrusted with them. The goal is to manage them so well that when life asks for them back, you can let go without fear. That's why Buffett plans to give away most of his fortune. He understands that wealth unshared is wasted, that hoarding abundance shrinks the soul. When you live with that kind of detachment, peace becomes permanent. Nothing the world gives can inflate you, and nothing it takes can deflate you. You start to see that legacy isn't about what people remember, it's about what continues. Buffett's wealth will fade someday. His name may dim, but the mindset he lived by will keep compounding those who learn from it. That immortality, not that carved in stone, but the kind breathed into others. And now, that same mindset belongs to you. The moment you internalize these principles, discipline, patience, simplicity, gratitude, you joined a lineage of thinkers who build instead of boast. You became part of a quiet brotherhood of men who measure wealth not in numbers, but in nights of peaceful sleep and mornings of purpose. You may not then have billions, but you already have the blueprint that created them. You already possess the mental architecture that sustains them. In time, people will come to you for advice. For many of the chap of wealth will fade someday. His name may dim, but the mindset he lived by will keep compounding those who learn from it. That immortality, not that carved in stone, but the kind breathed into others. And now, that same mindset belongs to you. The moment you internalize these principles, discipline, patience, simplicity, gratitude, you joined a lineage of thinkers who build instead of boast. You became part of a quiet brotherhood of men who measure wealth not in numbers, but in nights of peaceful sleep and mornings of purpose. You may not then have billions, but you already have the blueprint that created them. You already possess the mental architecture that sustains them. In time, people will come to you for advice. They'll ask how you became so calm, how you seem unbothered by what worries everyone else. You'll smile, remembering this moment, remembering the night you chose to change. You'll realize that what you found wasn't a technique or a secret, it was alignment. You stopped trying to dominate life and started cooperating with it. You stopped forcing outcomes and started trusting processes. That what Buffett mastered and that what you're mastering now. The whisper that once pulled you here will grow quiet. Not because it's gone, but because it become your own voice. You won't need to be reminded to stay patient, to stay steady, to stay simple. It will be who you are. The external mentor will fade, and the internal master will take his place. And so the journey ends where it began, not in noise, but in stillness. You were meant to find this message, yes, but more than that, you were meant to become it. The man who started reading these words is not the man who sits here now. He evolved. He steadied. He begun to embody the quiet wealth that can't be measured in dollars, but only in peace. And in that peace lies the proof that you've understood the deepest law of compound, that everything in life, faith, wisdom, love, patience, grows silently at first, then all at once. You don't chase it. You tend to it. You live it. That's what Buffett discovered. That what every wise man must one day discover for himself, that heaven isn't a place you arrive at, but a state you maintain through understanding. When the lessons settle and the echoes of every hardship fade into quiet and testing, a man realizes that life was never testing him, it was teaching him. Every loss, every delay, every detour was just a chapter in his education. Warren Buffett learned the truth earlier than most, and he never forgot it. That's why he greets each day like a scholar instead of a conqueror. He doesn't look for battles to win, he looks for lessons to learn. He knows that wisdom cannot be rushed or forced. It must be earned through experience, humility, and reflection. You're standing in that same place now. You've been tempered by time, shaped by repetition, and clarified by struggle. In that process, something extraordinary has taken root: peace. The kind of peace that doesn't come from avoiding storms, but from understanding that storms are part of the design. When you stop wishing for an easier path and start walking the one before you with grace, you've reached mastery. That's what Buffett represents. Not perfection, not power, but perfected. He once said, "The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. At first, you think he's warning you, but listen closer and you'll hear the deeper meaning. Those same chains, when forged from good habits, become wings. The discipline that once felt heavy becomes effortless. The patience that once felt painful becomes peace. The restraint that once felt restrictive becomes power." Everything that once required force now flows naturally. That's the real miracle of compound. It transforms discipline into instinct. You've walked that path already. You've repeated the thoughts, built the habits, silenced the noise, and now the man you once had to remind yourself to be has become your default state. You've transcended the stage of self-improvement and entered the stage of self-realization. You are no longer trying to become, you are simply being. And yet the journey doesn't end there. Mastery doesn't mean stillness, it means movement without strain, action without anxiety, growth without chaos. Buffett never retired from learning, as wisdom has no finish line. The more he learned, the more he realized how little he truly knew. That humility kept him expanding long after his peers settled into comfort. That the final secret of sustained success: curiosity. Curiosity keeps the spirit young. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you awake. You can always tell the difference between a man who has grown old and a man who has simply grown. One stops learning, the other never stops listening. So keep listening, keep reading, keep refining. Let your curiosity become the engine that powers your peace, because peace without purpose becomes stagnation, and purpose without peace becomes torment. The balance of both, that the true art of living. And remember, this wealth without wisdom is weight. It slows a man down, but wisdom turns wealth into wings. It lifts him, light-head him, makes him generous. That's why Buffett gives so much away.
Without emptying his fortune, he extending it. Every dollar that leaves his hand with purpose multiplies beyond sight. And so should your time, your kindness, your words, give them freely. Don't hoard what was meant to circulate. The energy you send out always returns multiplied. The man who clings to everything dies with nothing. The man who gives with intention leaves echoes that outlast him. You were not meant to store potential. You were meant to circulate it. To move through the world, a quiet force of order and calm in the midst of chaos. At what this speech was preparing you for, to carry the wisdom forward, not a listener, but a living example. You'll find in time that people will start to mirror your composure. They'll speak softer around you, think clearer near you, move slower in your resonance. That influence, not the loud, fleeting kind that burns fast and fades, but the subtle kind that spreads like sunrise. Buffett wields that kind of influence. He doesn't demand respect. He attracts it by being immovable in principle. The world bends around such men, not as they seek control, but as they radiate consistency. Consistency is magnetic, it's rare, and rarity always draws attention.
That what you've become now, man who radiates reliability in a world addicted to volatility. That is the highest currency you get hold.
Eventually, you'll realize that the whisper that started this journey, the one that told you you were meant to find this, was never external. It wasn't fate or destiny or a mystical alignment of stars. It was you. It was the higher version of yourself calling across time, reminding you to wake up. The voice you heard was your own, speaking from the future, pulling you toward the life you were meant to live. And now that you've arrived, you'll hear that voice differently. It won't whisper become, it will whisper be. That's how you'll know you've crossed into mastery. The man who once searched for meaning will become the meaning for others. The man who once needed this message will one day be the message. And as you sit in that realization, perhaps under the slow rhythm of rain or beside the soft crackle of fire, you'll understand what Buffett meant when he said, "You can't buy time." He didn't mean it with regret. He meant it with reverence. Because the truest wealth isn't stored in accounts, it's stored in awareness. It knowing that every breath is a dividend, every moment an investment, every day a return on the miracle of being alive. That's what you were meant to find. Not yet this speech, not yet the lessons, but yourself. You were meant to remember what kind of power sleeps quietly in an acute mind and a patient heart, and now that you know, your own task is to live it. When you walk away from this moment, don't think of it in an ending. Think of it in the handing over a torch, passed from word to spirit, from sound to silence. The fire has been lit. It belongs to you now. Carry it carefully. Feed it with discipline. Guard it with gratitude, and let its glow remind you every field day that the man who listens once is inspired, but the man who lives what he heard becomes immortal. You were meant to find this speech, but now the world is meant to find you. At effort, the fire of discovery gives way to the glow of understanding, and you reload that the entire journey, every high and low, every moment of confusion and clarity was a conversation between you and eternity. Buffett figured that out early, long before his billions, long before the world hauled him at Oracle. He wasn't chasing riches, he was listening to rhythm, the rhythm of cause and effect, patience and reward, silence and result. That rhythm exists in everything. The markets obey it, nature breathes by it, and life unfolds through it. Once you learn to listen to that rhythm, you stop fighting time and start partnering with it. You begin to sense when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to hold your peace. This is what separates those who live deliberately from those who live desperately. The desperate try to outpace time, the deliberate walk with it. Buffett's secret is not speed nor omniscience. It's aligned himself with the tempo of truth, and time itself rewarded him for his respect. You see, life rewards those who he trusted with time. Every second you spend wisely earns you a fraction of freedom. Buffett used his wisely not in constant busyness, but in focus. He devoted his attention to what he could understand deeply and ignored the rest. That's why his wealth compounded while others scattered. He didn't waste energy on proving points or keeping pace with trends. He mastered the art of enough knowledge to act, enough patience to wait, enough humility to keep learning. That's the kind of balance every man must find if he wants to live with peace instead of pressure. The world wants you distracted, but distraction makes you dependent. But the man who guards his focus becomes untouchable. He doesn't run from noise, he outlasts it. And you carry this mindset forward, you'll notice that your relationship with time changes. You no longer fear its passage, you cherish it. The clock no longer feels like a countdown, it feels like a companion. You begin to measure your life not by years, but by depth. Buffett measures his days in lessons learned, people helped, thoughts clarified. That's what makes him timeless. You can't age a man whose curiosity never ends. His mind is young because it's still growing. You can have that same immortality of mind. Every time you learn something new, every time you reflect instead of react, you add another ring to the tree of your wisdom. That's why patience feels heavy at first, but holy later. It builds roots before fruit. When you reach this place, you also start to see that wealth and wisdom are not separate. They are mirrors. Wealth without wisdom collapses. Wisdom without wealth remains unexpressed. The two complete each other when guided by principle. Buffett's billions are a reflection of his philosophy. Clarity, consistency, calm. Those are riches that can't be stolen. They can be practiced by anyone, in any era, with or without money. When you live them, you find yourself surrounded by quiet abundance. You stop feeling lack. You stop envying. You stop rushing. because you finally understand that the most valuable possession a man can have is his peace of mind. You can lose money and regain it. You can lose friends and find new ones, but lose your peace and everything collapses. That's why Buffett protects his time, his thoughts, his simplicity, because they are the vaults of peace. Protect yours the same way. And when you live like this long enough, you start to move through the world differently. You don't argue, you observe, you don't react, you respond. You don't seek to impress, you seek to understand. People will notice that stillness. Some may misunderstand it, distance. Others will feel drawn to it. That fine let them stillness isn't isolation, it's insulation. It keeps the chaos out and the clarity in. That's what Buffett built, and not a financial empire, but a mental fortress. And you too must become a fortress of focus in a world obsessed with frenzy. Guard your inner economy like he guards his outer one. Spend your attention where it multiplies. Invest your energy via that compounds. Withdraw it from where it depreciates. That's how you create the invisible wealth, the wealth of calmness, clarity, and confidence that outlasts fortune. Eventually, the world will test this new version of you. It will send storms disguise day's opportunity and noise disguise day's urgency. Don't be fooled. Buffett doesn't chase every deal because he knows not every pitch is worth swinging at. You must live by that same patience. Not every argument deserves your words. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every door that opens leads to your destiny. Wait for your pitch. When it comes, swing hard. Until then, stand still. It takes more strength to wait than to wander. The impatient man burns out, the patient man compounds. Remember, timing is not just about luck, it's about listening. When you are quiet enough, life tells you when to move. And someday, maybe sooner than you expect, you'll wake up and realize that you've become the thing of man people look to when they need grounding. They'll ask you how you stay calm, how you stay centered while the world trembles. And you'll tell them the truth. That calmness was not a gift, it was a decision. That patience was not luck, it was training. That peace was not inherited, it was earned. One disciplined choice at a time. You'll understand deeply that what began then a whisper has now become a legacy. The voice that led you here will lead others through you. That how wisdom moved through the world. Not as thunder, but that elk. Buffett elk is already inside you. Now it's your turn to carry it forward. And when your own days begin to slow, when the long road behind you begins to shimmer in memory, you'll feel the same quiet satisfaction Buffett carries, the satisfaction of a man who didn't just live long, but lived right. You'll know that success was never a race, it was a rhythm. You'll know that purpose wasn't something you chased, it was something you nurtured. And you'll know that the greatest victory wasn't in wealth or recognition, but in becoming someone whose very presence calms the storms round him. That the destination, that the purpose of it, you were meant to find this speech because you were meant to find yourself. And now, finally, you have. When life reaches that still horizon, the plate where ambition no longer burns like a fever, but glows like a lantern, you understand the real nature of wealth. It was never about accumulation, it was about ascension. Buffett ascended not by climbing over men, but by rising through mastery of self. That is the final lesson, the one most will never grasp. Because it cannot be taught in books or speeches. It must be lived. When you master yourself, the world can no longer manipulate you. Trends lose their pull, opinions lose their power. Time itself becomes your ally. You stop feeling the need to catch up, but you finally realize there's nothing to catch. Everything meant for you, you arrive on time when you're ready for it. And readiness is not about preparation, it's about alignment. Buffett never rushed into opportunity because he knew rushing is the language of lack. Patience speaks the dialect of abundance. When you no longer feel the need to prove or chase, that when the universe starts whispering in your favor, the old you might have thought peace was something that comes after achievement. But now you see it the soil from which achievement grows. Peace is not the reward, it's the requirement. Buffett understood that deeply. His empire was built on calm judgment, not adrenaline. He didn't just read numbers, he read silence. They trusted that quiet observation reveals more than noise would. That's why he spends hours each day in solitude thinking, not reacting. Reflection, not reaction, compounds faster than any stock. Every man should do this. The louder the world comes, the more valuable silence gets. When you can think clear in a storm, you no longer fear the weather. When your inner world is in order, your outer world bends to match it. They're an invisible wealth that only the wise hold, the wealth of not needing to be seen. Buffett could have bought attention 1,000 times over. but he bought simplicity instead. That's how he became rich in peace, not in possessions. It's why he lives in the same house, eats the same breakfast, drives without ceremony. To the untrained eye, it looks plain, but that plainness hides power. It's the kind of life that isn't for show, it's for self. That's the shift you must make. The goal is not to look rich, but to live rich in thought, in patience, in freedom. The truest luxury is control over your time and attention. That's what the modern world tries to steal with every notification, every advertisement, every demand for urgency. Buffett rebellion is quiet. He simply refuses to rush. His wealth is not speed, it's space. He gives his mind room to breathe. Once you taste that fat of freedom, you'll understand that simplicity is not sacrifice. It's sophistication. To strip away the unnecessary until only the essential remains. That refinement. And the say applies to thought. Strip away the noise of opinions, the clutter of comparison, the heaviness of doubt. What left is clarity, the raw material of greatness. Clarity makes small actions powerful. Buffett doesn't take hundreds of bets, he takes a few good ones. That's the paradox of mastery. The better you get, the less you need to do. Excellence narrows the field. You don't scatter your energy, you channel, let. You don't react to opportunity, you select. That's what makes time your partner instead of your prison. And something few understand. Real wealth is rhythmic. It breathes. It's not about having more, about being more. Being grounded when others shake. Being grateful when others grasp. Being baked when others flail. Buffett's mind is steady as it trained to see patterns, feeds, others see chaos, doesn't try to predict the future. He studies the principles that shape it. You can do the same. Study the principles, patience, discipline, simplicity, and they'll serve you in every arena. The world may evolve, but principles don't. They are the old compounding assets that never depreciate. And when you live by those principles long enough, you start to feel a kind of inevitability in your path. The man you were meant to be doesn't feel like a dream anymore. He feels like destiny made visible. Every choice you make affirms him. Every day of discipline ingrains him. You don't chase your future self anymore. You walk beside him. That's what embodiment truly means. The internal and external finally merge. Your thoughts no longer contradict your actions. Your words no longer outrun your work. You've become whole. Buffett lives in that wholeness every day. His peace isn't the result of achievement, the reflection of alignment. And when you live by those principles long enough, you start to feel a kind of inevitability in your path. The man you are meant to be doesn't feel like a dream anymore. He feels like destiny made visible. Every choice you make affirms him. Every day of discipline ingrains him. You don't chase your future self anymore. You walk beside him. That's what embodiment truly means. The internal and external finally merge. Your thoughts no longer contradict your actions. Your words no longer outrun your work. You've become whole. Buffett lives in that wholeness every day. His peace isn't the result of achievement, the reflection of alignment. You are capable of the same equilibrium if you can resist the pull of distraction and keep your compass pointed inward. This is when most men falter. They reach the threshold of peace and mistake it for boredom. They crave the chaos they once called progress.
Or don't confuse stillness with stagnation. Stillness is strength at rest. It is sharpened blade waiting for purpose.
Buffett's stillness isn't laziness, it's latent power. He knows that when the right opportunity arises, motion in return, swift and precise. Until then, patience is action in disguise. So, learn to rest without rusting. Learn to wait without weakening. Learn to breathe without breaking momentum. The more you practice that, the more your life becomes effortless precision. You no longer waste energy explaining, proving, defending. You move through your days like a craftsman, shaping something invisible but eternal. Every thought measured, every word intentional, every action deliberate. That's the essence of a compounded life. Each moment adds to the last, stacking quietly into legacy. Legacy isn't built in noise, it's built in nuance. Buffett's legacy isn't the money at the mod. He proved that peace and prosperity are not enemies. He showed that discipline and joy can coexist. He demonstrated that you can win without wood, rise without rushing, and lead without shouting. And someday, long after you've forgotten these exact words, the rhythm will remain. You'll move through the world with that same quiet assurance, the kind that can't be faked or forced.